The fleet hung in the void like predatory sharks circling wounded prey. Admiral watched the tactical display with satisfaction as the human vessel limped through space, its hull by plasma burns and its engines sputtering weakly. The battle had lasted 3 hours, and now the humans were finished. At least, that's what every species in the galaxy would assume. "Signal the human ship," commanded from his command throne. "Tell them to surrender their vessel and prepare for boarding. Their pathetic resistance ends now." Captain Sarah stood on the bridge of the UES Determination, her uniform torn and blood-stained from debris that had exploded when the weapons found their mark. Around her, emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across damaged consoles. Her crew worked frantically to keep basic systems online, their faces grim but determined. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the flagship," reported Lieutenant Torres from the communications station, his voice steady despite the circumstances. "Put it through," ordered, her ice-blue eyes never leaving the main screen showing the enemy formation. The holographic image of Admiral materialized above the central console. The commander was an imposing figure, standing nearly 8 feet tall with chitinous armor plating covering his reptilian features. His 4 arms gestured dismissively as he spoke. "Human captain, your vessel is crippled and your crew is beaten. You have fought bravely, I will grant you that much. But this battle is over. Surrender now, and I will ensure your crew receives proper treatment as prisoners of war." Stepped forward, her boots echoing on the damaged deck plating. "Admiral, I appreciate your concern for my crew's welfare, but I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding." His head tilted slightly, confusion evident in his alien features. "Misunderstanding? Your ship is barely functional, your weapons are offline, your shields are down to 12%. What misunderstanding could there possibly be?" A smile played at the corner of his mouth, and for the first time since the battle began, she looked genuinely relaxed. "The misunderstanding is that you think this battle is over." The Admiral's confusion deepened. "Captain, perhaps the stress of combat has affected your judgment. Scan your own vessel, review your tactical situation. You cannot possibly—" "Computer," interrupted, her voice carrying clearly across the bridge. "Execute Protocol 7. The response was immediate. Throughout the ship, systems that had appeared damaged suddenly hummed to life. Weapons arrays that seemed destroyed rotated smoothly into firing position. Shield generators that had been supposedly offline began charging with an ominous whine. The Determination's engines, which moments before had been barely functional, now blazed with full power. On the flagship, alarm klaxons began wailing as sensors detected the sudden change in the human vessel's status. Officers scrambled at their stations, their earlier confidence evaporating like morning mist. "Impossible," whispered, staring at the tactical readouts. "Our sensors clearly showed." "Your sensors showed exactly what we wanted them to show," replied, her smile now fully visible. "Admiral, meet humanity's latest innovation, adaptive holographic damage projection. For the past 3 hours, you've been fighting a ship that was never actually damaged." The implications hit the commander like a physical blow. You were testing us." "Learning from you," corrected. "Your tactics, your weapons capabilities, your formation patterns, your response times. We needed to understand how you fight before we showed you how humans fight." Lieutenant Commander James Park, the Determination's tactical officer, looked up from his console. "Captain, all weapons systems are fully operational and locked onto their targets. Shall I demonstrate the difference between our actual capabilities and what the Admiral has been experiencing?" Nodded, fire a warning shot across their flagship's bow, just a small demonstration of our real firepower. The Determination's main plasma cannon charged with a sound like thunder. When it fired, the energy beam that lanced across space was 3 times more powerful than anything they had seen from the human ship. It passed mere meters from its flagship, and the sheer energy discharge caused the alien vessel's shields to flicker and strain. Aboard the command ship, the bridge crew exchanged nervous glances. If that had been a direct hit instead of a warning shot, their shields would have collapsed entirely. "Now then," continued, her voice taking on a more serious tone, "let's discuss the actual tactical situation. Your fleet consists of 12 heavy cruisers and 36 escort vessels. You've arranged them in your traditional 3-wave formation, which is excellent for overwhelming less advanced opponents. Unfortunately for you, we're not less advanced." She gestured to her tactical officer. "Show them what they're really facing." The space around the Determination suddenly filled with new contacts as stealth systems disengaged. 6 more human vessels materialized from apparently empty space, their sleek hulls gleaming under the star's light. Each ship was larger than the Determination and bristled with weapons that made the fleet's armaments look primitive by comparison. 7 ships against 48, said, trying to maintain his composure. Your numerical disadvantage remains significant. Does it? Asked. Computer, show Admiral what our friends have been up to while we've been chatting. The main screen shifted to display a wider tactical view of the battle zone. The Admiral's confidence crumbled as he saw what the human vessels had accomplished during their conversation. While he'd been focused on the apparently crippled Determination, the other human ships had quietly maneuvered into perfect firing positions around his entire fleet. Every vessel was now bracketed by human ships, trapped in overlapping fields of fire with no escape routes. The humans had turned the entire battle zone into a carefully orchestrated trap, and the had walked directly into it. 73 minutes, said, checking her chronometer. That's how long it took my fleet to completely surround yours while you were fighting one supposedly damaged ship. I have to say, Admiral, your tactical awareness could use some improvement. His 4 hands clenched into fists. This is trickery, deception. No honorable species fights this way. Honorable? His voice hardened. Admiral, your fleet attacked a human colony world 3 days ago. 17,000 civilians died in your bombardment, including children who never had a chance to grow up. You want to talk to me about honor? The commander fell silent. The attack on the human colony had been a tactical strike meant to demonstrate superiority and force humanity to submit to their demands. He hadn't expected the humans to respond so quickly or effectively. The difference between us, continued, is that when you attacked our colony, you brought your full strength against defenseless civilians. When we respond, we bring our full intelligence against your military forces. Which approach do you think is more honorable? Doctor, the ship's science officer, looked up from her console. Captain, I'm detecting interesting readings from their fleet composition. The ships are using a modular design system that suggests they're capable of rapid reconfiguration. Should we gather more intelligence on their adaptive capabilities? Good thinking, Doctor. Admiral, my science officer raises an interesting point. Your ships can reconfigure their systems mid-battle, can't they? That's actually quite impressive technology. We'd like to study it more closely. The Admiral realized the human captain was still gathering intelligence, even as she held his entire fleet hostage. You cannot seriously expect us to simply hand over our technological secrets. Of course not, agreed. That would be unreasonable, but here's what's going to happen. You're going to power down your weapons and allow our ships to conduct detailed scans of your vessels. In return, I won't demonstrate what happens when humanity stops holding back. And if we refuse? His expression grew cold. Then you'll learn why humans are considered the most dangerous species in this sector of the galaxy. Admiral, we've been at war for exactly 74 hours. In that time, we've located your main fleet, neutralized your tactical advantages, and surrounded your entire force. Your military intelligence estimated it would take us months to mount an effective response. How long do you think it will take us to locate and neutralize your home fleet? The question hung in the air like a death sentence. Realized that everything he'd been told about human capabilities was wrong. They weren't the primitive, emotional species that intelligence had described. They were something far more dangerous, a species that fought with both advanced technology and tactical brilliance. Your choice, Admiral, said. Peaceful surrender and technological exchange, or total war against an opponent who just demonstrated they're several steps ahead of you. Looked at his tactical display one more time, seeing his trapped fleet surrounded by superior forces. The humans had outmaneuvered, outthought, and outprepared his entire command. This wasn't just a military defeat. It was a comprehensive demonstration of human superiority in every aspect of warfare. That Admiral's surrender transmission crackled across the void, his voice heavy with defeat. All vessels, stand down. Power weapons to minimum and prepare for boarding procedures. The words tasted like ash in his mouth, but the tactical situation left no room for pride. Captain watched the alien fleet comply with the surrender order, their weapons arrays dimming one by one. But she knew this was only the beginning. They weren't just another aggressive species. They were part of something much larger and more dangerous. Captain, Lieutenant Torres called from communications. We're receiving priority transmissions from Earth Command. Put Admiral Harrison through, ordered. The holographic image of Fleet Admiral Sarah Harrison materialized on the bridge. Even through the quantum communication link, her expression was grim. Captain, congratulations on your tactical success, but I'm afraid your situation is about to become significantly more complicated. Felt a familiar knot form in her stomach. What's the situation, Admiral? There were scouts for the Hegemony Alliance. 3 hours ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected a massive fleet mobilization in the Andromeda Reach. Initial estimates suggest over 3,000 vessels are heading for human space. Doctor looked up sharply from her science station. 3,000 ships. Captain, even with our technological advantages, those numbers represent a significant threat. It gets worse, Admiral Harrison continued. Intelligence suggests the hegemony has been preparing this offensive for over 2 years. They've studied every major human military engagement, analyzed our tactics, and developed countermeasures for our known technologies. They believe they're ready for us. Commander Park frowned at his tactical display. Admiral, are we talking about a full-scale invasion? Complete subjugation, Harrison confirmed. The hegemony doesn't believe in coexistence with species they consider inferior. Their plan is to eliminate human military capability, occupy our worlds, and integrate our population into their labor force. Studied the data streaming across her command console. The Hegemony Alliance was a coalition of 12 species that had conquered most of the Outer Rim territories through overwhelming numerical superiority and brutal efficiency. They weren't just another enemy. They represented an existential threat to human civilization. Admiral called, reactivating the communication link with the flagship. I assume you're monitoring this transmission. The alien commander nodded grimly. Captain, I must warn you that your species has gravely underestimated the hegemony's capabilities. The force heading toward your space includes dreadnoughts, siege platforms, and even your impressive technology cannot prevail against such overwhelming numbers. Perhaps, replied, but her tone suggested she disagreed. Tell me, Admiral, what do you know about human military doctrine? Confusion was evident. Your species favors technological superiority and tactical flexibility. Your forces are well-trained but relatively small in number. Why do you ask? Because you've only seen our peacetime military, explained. What's heading toward human space isn't our regular fleet, it's humanity at war. Admiral Harrison's image nodded approvingly. Captain, you're authorized to demonstrate Protocol Omega to our guests. They should understand what they've helped trigger. Turn to her tactical officer. Commander Park, activate the quantum communication array. Link us to the Titan shipyards, the Mars defense platform, and the Jupiter construction rings. Aye, Captain, quantum links established. The main screen divided into multiple sections, each showing different locations throughout human space. What they saw challenged everything they thought they knew about human military capabilities. At the Titan shipyards, massive construction bays that had appeared to be building civilian vessels suddenly reconfigured. The hull sections being assembled weren't cargo ships or passenger transports. They were warships larger than anything in the fleet. Dozens of them. Industrial conversion protocol is at 97% completion, reported a voice from the shipyard. Estimated time to full military production, 4 hours. The Mars defense platform revealed similar surprises. What had appeared to be a planetary defense installation was actually a mobile fortress capable of interstellar travel. Its weapons arrays emerged from concealed positions, revealing firepower that could level entire fleets. Mars Command reporting full readiness, the platform commander announced. All stealth frigates are deployed and awaiting orders. But it was the Jupiter construction rings that truly shocked. The massive orbital structures that had been mining gas from Jupiter's atmosphere suddenly detached from their anchoring positions. They weren't just mining platforms. They were mobile weapon platforms capable of converting raw materials into military hardware in real time. Jupiter rings operational, their commander reported. Material conversion efficiency at maximum. We can produce 100 fully armed patrol craft per hour for the next 72 hours. Stared at the display in disbelief. This is impossible. Our intelligence networks monitored human space for 3 years. None of these capabilities were detected. That's because they didn't exist 3 years ago, explained. Admiral, humanity learned a valuable lesson from studying galactic history. Every species that survived long-term developed one crucial capability, the ability to rapidly militarize when threatened. Doctor added, our industrial base was designed with dual-purpose functionality. Every civilian construction project can be converted to military production within hours. Every defensive installation is actually a mobile weapon platform. Every mining operation doubles as a materials supply line for warship construction. But the logistics alone, protested. Coordinating such a massive transformation would require unprecedented organizational efficiency. Which brings us to humanity's other advantage, said. Computer, show Admiral the coordination protocol. The display shifted to show a real-time tactical map of human space. Thousands of points of light represented ships, stations, and installations, all connected by streaming data flows. The pattern resembled a vast neural network, with information flowing seamlessly between every component. Quantum-entangled communication networks, explained. Every human military asset is connected in real time. Our fleet commanders don't need to guess what their allies are doing. They know instantly. Our logistics coordinators don't need to estimate supply needs. They have real-time data from every front. Admiral Harrison's image leaned forward. Captain, show him the response time analysis. New data flooded the display. When they attacked our colony world, continued, the attack was detected, analyzed, and responded to within 17 minutes. Fleet movements, resource allocation, tactical planning, and strategic deployment all happened simultaneously across human space. 17 minutes, repeated, his voice barely a whisper. Our fastest response time for a similar incident is 43 hours. Which explains why you're here, surrounded by our fleet, instead of us being scattered across space trying to respond to your attack, Commander Park observed. The communication link with Earth Command chimed with an incoming priority message. Captain, Admiral Harrison announced, I have an update on the Hegemony fleet movement. Our deep space reconnaissance drones have gathered additional intelligence. What did they find, Admiral? The Hegemony fleet is larger than initially estimated. 4,000 vessels, including 12 Planet-Killer-class dreadnoughts. They're also moving faster than expected. Estimated arrival in human space, 68 hours. His head sank in despair. Captain, I must tell you honestly, no species has ever survived an assault of that magnitude. The Hegemony has perfected the art of overwhelming force. They will not stop until every human world is under their control. Looked at the Admiral with what appeared to be genuine sympathy. Admiral, I appreciate your concern, but you're making the same mistake your intelligence analysts made. You're assuming we're going to wait for them to arrive. What do you mean? Asked, though he dreaded the answer. Humanity doesn't fight defensive wars, explained. We learned that strategy leads to prolonged conflicts and massive casualties. When an enemy decides to threaten our existence, we prefer to resolve the matter quickly and decisively. Admiral Harrison nodded from her transmission. Captain, you're authorized to proceed with Operation Thunderbolt. Show the Hegemony what happens when they threaten human civilization. Turned to her tactical officer. Commander Park, signal the fleet. All vessels are to prepare for immediate departure. We're going to meet the Hegemony fleet in deep space. Captain, Doctor said, her voice concerned, are 7 ships against 4,000. Even with our technological advantages, those odds are. Doctor, interrupted with a smile that would have terrified any human who saw it. Who said anything about 7 ships? The display changed again, showing human space from a broader perspective. What had appeared to be empty space between star systems suddenly filled with new contacts. Hundreds of them, then thousands. Stealth fleet in progress, Park reported. Total count, 6,437 vessels. Couldn't speak. The humans hadn't just been building ships in their obvious shipyards. They'd been constructing entire fleets in deep space, hidden by stealth technology that made them invisible to every sensor system the galaxy had ever developed. Admiral said, her voice now carrying the full authority of humanity. The Hegemony fleet emerged from hyperspace in the 442 system like a plague of metallic locusts descending upon the void. Supreme Commander stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Dominion, a massive dreadnought that dwarfed even the largest vessels in his fleet. Around him, holographic displays showed the overwhelming force at his command. 4,000 ships arranged in perfect formation, ready to crush humanity once and for all. Long-range sensors detect no human presence, reported his tactical officer, whose 6 eyes scanned multiple displays simultaneously. The system appears completely empty. Impossible, growled. Human intelligence networks would have detected our approach hours ago. Where are their defensive fleets? The answer came in the form of a transmission that appeared on every screen throughout the hegemony fleet. Captain's image materialized with crystal clarity, her expression calm and professional despite facing odds that should have been insurmountable. Supreme Commander, she began, welcome to human space. I'm Captain Sarah of the United Earth Forces. Before we begin, I wanted to personally thank you for making this so convenient. His mandibles clicked in irritation. Convenient? Human, your species is about to be exterminated. 4,000 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy are about to learn why picking a fight with humanity was the worst decision your alliance ever made, interrupted. Computer, show the Supreme Commander what he's really facing. Space around the hegemony fleet exploded into activity as thousands of human vessels simultaneously. They appeared from every direction, above, below, and from all sides, surrounding the hegemony formation in a perfect sphere of overlapping firepower. The alien fleet, which moments before had seemed unstoppable, was now trapped in the center of a human armada twice their size. This is impossible, whispered Science Officer, whose bioneural implants sparked with overload. Our sensors detected nothing. How did they hide so many vessels? His voice carried across the void with quiet authority. Supreme Commander, meet humanity's latest innovation in stealth technology, quantum phase displacement. Your ships aren't just invisible to sensors, they're temporarily shifted into parallel dimensional space. We learned the technique from studying black hole physics. Admiral, who had been brought along as a strategic advisor, found his voice. Supreme Commander, I tried to warn the Hegemony Council. The humans are not what our intelligence reports described. They are far more dangerous than any species we have encountered. Silence, snapped. No force can challenge the Hegemony Alliance. We have conquered 47 star systems. We have subjugated dozens of species. We will not be intimidated by primitive humans and their parlor tricks. Primitive? Asked, and for the first time she sounded genuinely amused. Commander, I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding. You believe this is going to be a battle. We consider this a field test for our new military technologies. The main screen aboard the Eternal Dominion shifted to show tactical analysis of the surrounding human fleet. What the hegemony sensors detected made their commanders question everything they knew about warfare. Energy signatures are off the charts, reported the tactical officer. Individual human vessels are reading power outputs equivalent to our entire battle groups. How is this possible? Doctor's voice joined the transmission from the UES determination. Zero-point energy extraction, coupled with controlled antimatter fusion. We learned to harness vacuum energy fluctuations by studying the cosmic background radiation patterns. Each of our ships has access to effectively unlimited power. But the engineering required, stammered a scientist monitoring the readings. The precision necessary to control such energies should be beyond any organic species. Which brings us to humanity's other advantage, continued. Supreme Commander, your species developed artificial intelligence and then restricted it out of fear. We developed AI and made it our partner. The human fleet formation shifted with supernatural precision as thousands of vessels moved in perfect coordination. Every ship knew the position and intent of every other ship instantly, creating a tactical network that functioned like a single vast organism. Quantum-linked AI coordination systems, explained Commander Park from his station. Our artificial intelligences aren't just calculating firing solutions. They're predicting enemy movements, optimizing formation patterns, and coordinating tactics across our entire fleet in real time. Supreme Commander studied his tactical displays with growing dread. His fleet, which had seemed invincible only minutes before, was now revealed to be hopelessly outmatched in every conceivable metric. Firepower, coordination, technology, tactical position. The humans held overwhelming advantages in every category. This changes nothing, he declared, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. The hegemony has survived by adapting to superior enemies. We will find a weakness in your defenses. Will you, asked. Computer, run a tactical simulation for the Supreme Commander. Show him what happens if his fleet attempts to break out of our formation. The main screen filled with a three-dimensional battle projection. The simulation played out in accelerated time, showing the hegemony fleet attempting various escape maneuvers and attack patterns. In every scenario, the result was the same: complete annihilation of the alien forces within minutes. 97% casualty rate in the best-case scenario, reported the simulation AI in a calm, neutral voice. Hegemony fleet tactical doctrine is unable to overcome current human positioning and technological superiority. His four-armed frame slumped in his command chair. What do you want from us? Excellent question, replied. Admiral Harrison, would you like to explain humanity's terms? Fleet Admiral Harrison's image appeared alongside Captain's. Supreme Commander, the Hegemony Alliance has a choice to make. You can continue your policy of galactic conquest and face the consequences, or you can accept a new reality. What new reality? Asked, though he suspected he wouldn't like the answer. That humanity is now the dominant military power in this sector of the galaxy, Harrison explained. Your alliance conquered 47 star systems over 3 centuries through superior numbers and conventional tactics. We've just demonstrated the ability to neutralize your entire fleet in minutes using advanced technology and strategic thinking. You're demanding our surrender. We're offering you a chance to evolve, interjected. Supreme Commander, your alliance conquered those 47 systems by destroying their civilizations and enslaving their populations. That's not strength, that's waste. Doctor's voice added scientific context. Every species the hegemony destroyed possessed unique knowledge, cultural innovations, and scientific insights that could have benefited the entire galaxy. Instead of learning from them, you eliminated them. That's not just morally wrong, it's strategically stupid. Admiral, who had been silent during the exchange, finally spoke. Supreme Commander, perhaps it is time to consider that our methods have been inefficient. Inefficient? His voice rose in anger. The hegemony's methods have created the largest interstellar empire in known space. And we've just demonstrated the ability to dismantle it in a single engagement, pointed out. Supreme Commander, real power isn't the ability to destroy civilizations. Real power is the ability to build something better than what existed before. The human fleet formation shifted again, and this time the movement carried a clear message. The surrounding vessels weren't just maintaining position, they were demonstrating their capability to strike from any angle at any moment. The hegemony fleet was completely at their mercy. What are you proposing? Asked finally. A new model for galactic civilization, Admiral Harrison explained. Instead of conquest and subjugation, we propose cooperation and mutual development. Species retain their independence and sovereignty while sharing knowledge and resources for everyone's benefit. And if the hegemony refuses this, cooperation. Its expression hardened. Then humanity will demonstrate why we're called the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Supreme Commander, we've been preparing for this moment since the day we first detected your empire's existence. We know the location of every hegemony military installation, every supply depot, every administrative center. The tactical display shifted to show a map of hegemony space, with thousands of red markers indicating human intelligence gathering points. The alien commanders realized with growing horror that humanity had been planning this confrontation for years, possibly decades. You've been watching us, whispered. Learning from you, corrected. We studied your tactics, your technology, your weaknesses. We identified every strategic vulnerability in your empire, and we prepared countermeasures for every possible response you might make. Commander Park looked up from his console. Captain, we're receiving confirmation signals from deep strike teams throughout hegemony space. All primary targets are marked and ready for simultaneous engagement. The implication was clear. If this fleet was destroyed, humanity was prepared to strike at the heart of the hegemony alliance itself. The aliens weren't just facing defeat. They were facing the complete dismantling of their entire civilization. Choose carefully, Supreme Commander, advised. Because what you decide in the next 60 seconds will determine whether the hegemony alliance adapts to a new galaxy or becomes a historical footnote in humanity's expansion. Looked at his tactical displays one more time, seeing his trapped fleet surrounded by superior forces. The humans had outmaneuvered, outprepared, and outthought his entire alliance. This wasn't just a military defeat. It was proof that humanity represented an entirely new level of galactic power. Supreme Commander's silence stretched across the void for 43 seconds before he finally activated his communication array. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of a decision that would reshape the galaxy. The Hegemony Alliance accepts your terms for negotiation, he said, each word seeming to cost him enormous effort. But we demand guarantees for the safety of our personnel and the sovereignty of our member worlds. Captain nodded approvingly. A wise decision, Supreme Commander. Admiral Harrison, would you like to outline the framework we've prepared? Fleet Admiral Harrison's holographic image stepped forward. The transition framework is simple, Supreme Commander. First, all hegemony military forces stand down and return to defensive positions within your core territories. Second, occupied worlds are granted immediate autonomy with human oversight during the transition period. Third, your alliance participates in the new Galactic Cooperation Council. And if we refuse? Asked the tactical officer, his 6 eyes still monitoring the overwhelming human fleet surrounding them. Then you'll discover what humanity considers a proportional response to genocide, replied, her tone becoming noticeably colder. Supreme Commander, our intelligence networks have documented 17 major population centers that your alliance completely exterminated. Over 4 billion sentient beings died in those attacks. Did you think there would be no consequences? Doctor's voice added scientific precision to the discussion. We've analyzed the psychological profiles of every major hegemony commander over the past 50 years. The data suggests your alliance views destruction as an acceptable tool of policy. That worldview is incompatible with galactic civilization. His mandibles clicked nervously. Doctor, your analysis ignores the practical realities of maintaining order across multiple star systems. Sometimes force is necessary to prevent greater chaos. Sometimes it is, agreed. But not the kind of force your alliance has been using. Computer, show the Supreme Commander the colony incident. The main display filled with archived footage from one of the hegemony's recent conquests. The images were horrifying. Civilian populations being systematically eliminated, infrastructure being destroyed rather than captured, entire ecosystems being sterilized to prevent any possibility of resistance. This wasn't maintaining order, continued. This was systematic annihilation of a peaceful species whose only crime was possessing resources your alliance wanted. 23 million died in a 3-day bombardment because your commanders decided conquest was easier than negotiation. Admiral, who had witnessed many such incidents during his service, found himself speaking without permission. Supreme Commander, perhaps Captain is correct. Our methods have been excessively destructive. Admiral snapped, you are speaking out of turn. No, interrupted. He's speaking honestly for the first time in this conversation. Admiral, your service record shows 37 successful campaigns over 20 years. How many of those victories could have been achieved through negotiation rather than force? The commander considered the question carefully. Truthfully, perhaps 35 of them. Most species we encountered were willing to negotiate trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. We chose military conquest because it was efficient. Efficient at creating hatred and resistance, Doctor observed. Our psychological analysis of conquered territories shows that forced subjugation creates long-term instability requiring constant military presence to maintain control. Cooperative agreements create stable partnerships that strengthen over time. Supreme Commander studied the tactical displays showing his surrounded fleet. Captain, assuming the hegemony accepts your cooperation framework, what guarantees do we have that humanity won't simply replace our alliance as the dominant galactic power? An excellent question, Admiral Harrison replied. The answer is that humanity has no interest in becoming a galactic empire. We're interested in being part of a galactic community. The difference being, gestured to her tactical officer, Commander Park, show them the lunar accords. The display shifted to show a complex document that had clearly taken years to develop. The lunar accords establish the legal framework for our Galactic Cooperation Council, Park explained. No single species can hold more than 25% of the Council's voting power. All major decisions require consensus from at least 4 different species. Military action against member worlds is prohibited except in cases of self-defense. You're voluntarily limiting your own power, asked the science officer, confusion evident in her bioluminescent skin patterns. We're ensuring that power remains distributed, corrected. Supreme Commander, humanity learned an important lesson from studying galactic history. Every empire eventually collapses under the weight of its own expansion. Every species that tries to rule the galaxy eventually destroys itself. Doctor added historical context. The First Confederation, the Spiral Arm Alliance, all of them fell because they concentrated too much power in too few hands. We're proposing a system that prevents any single species from making that mistake. But you clearly have the military capability to enforce your will, pointed out. What prevents you from changing these accords when it becomes convenient? The same thing that prevented us from simply destroying your fleet instead of offering negotiations, replied. It's called enlightened self-interest. Supreme Commander, a galaxy where disputes are settled through cooperation is more stable, more prosperous, and more secure than a galaxy ruled through fear. Commander Park looked up from his console. Captain, we're receiving priority communications from the test colonies. Put them through, ordered. The display split to show 3 different star systems where humanity had been experimenting with cooperative governance. In each system, multiple species worked together on massive infrastructure projects, scientific research, and cultural exchange programs. New Geneva colony reporting, came the first voice. Human joint mining operation has exceeded production targets by 40%. Both species report high satisfaction with the cooperative framework. Harmony Station checking in, added the second voice. Our species research team has achieved a breakthrough in gravitational field manipulation. All 3 governments have agreed to share the technology freely. Friendship outpost here, concluded the third voice. The Human Cultural Exchange Program has resulted in the development of 17 new artistic forms and 3 new philosophical frameworks, requesting expansion to include additional species. Stared at the reports in disbelief. You have survivors working with humans but we exterminated there. You exterminated 23 million, corrected. But 300,000 escaped in automated evacuation ships. We found them, offered them sanctuary, and helped them establish new colonies. They've become some of our closest allies. Why, asked Admiral, why would you help refugees from a species that your enemies had defeated? Because helping refugees is what decent civilizations do, replied. Admiral, they didn't want revenge against the people. They wanted justice for the crimes committed against them. There's a difference. Doctor expanded on the point. Revenge creates cycles of violence that last for generations. Justice creates resolution that allows all parties to move forward constructively. They are now working with reformed colonies to develop new models for cooperation. Reformed colonies, repeated. Admiral can explain, said, nodding to the commander. Straightened in his restraints. Supreme Commander, after my capture, Captain allowed me to communicate with my home fleet. When I explained what I had learned about human capabilities and intentions, 17 of our colony worlds declared independence from the Hegemony Alliance. They what? They established autonomous governments and requested admission to the Galactic Cooperation Council, continued. Supreme Commander, they weren't rebelling against culture or values. They were rebelling against the Alliance's policy of endless conquest. The implications hit like a physical blow. The human strategy wasn't just military, it was ideological. They weren't just defeating hegemony forces, they were offering hegemony worlds a better alternative to the Alliance's authoritarian structure. How many? He asked quietly. Commander Park consulted his intelligence reports. As of 6 hours ago, 43 hegemony member worlds have declared independence and requested council membership. The number is increasing by approximately 7 worlds per day. You're dismantling our alliance from within, accused. We're offering your people a choice, corrected. Supreme Commander, the beings on those worlds weren't given a voice in the hegemony's decision to wage war against humanity. Why should they suffer the consequences of policies they never supported? Admiral Harrison's image leaned forward. Supreme Commander, This is your final opportunity to choose evolution over extinction. Join the new galactic community as equals, or watch your alliance collapse as every rational world abandons your failing empire. Looked around his bridge at officers who were no longer meeting his eyes. The tactical displays showed his trapped fleet surrounded by superior forces. Intelligence reports showed his alliance fracturing from within. Everything he had built his career on was crumbling in real time. If we agree to your terms, he said slowly, what happens to hegemony military personnel? What happens to our leadership? That depends, replied, on whether you choose to be part of the solution or continue to be part of the problem. The Supreme Commander realized that this wasn't just the end of a battle or 6 months after the confrontation in the 442 system. Supreme Commander stood in the central chamber of the newly constructed Galactic Cooperation Council headquarters. The massive space station orbited the neutral world of Sanctuary Prime, a planet that had been jointly terraformed by 12 different species working together. Looking through the transparent aluminum windows, he could see ships from dozens of civilizations docked at the station's many ports, their crews working together in ways that would have been unthinkable under hegemony rule. Hard to believe it's only been half a year, said a familiar voice behind him. Turned to see Captain approaching, though she now wore the insignia of Admiral following her promotion. Her expression was warm but professional, the look of someone who had achieved something unprecedented and was still processing the implications. Admiral greeted her with a respectful nod. I was just reviewing the progress reports from the former hegemony territories. The transformation has been remarkable. Remarkable is one word for it, agreed, joining him at the observation window. Though I prefer inevitable. Once people see a better way to live, they tend to choose it. The statistics were indeed staggering. Of the hegemony's original 47 conquered worlds, 45 had joined the Galactic Cooperation Council. The remaining 2 had chosen complete independence rather than continued allegiance to the old alliance. More significantly, productivity across former hegemony space had increased by an average of 300% as worlds were freed to pursue their natural economic and cultural strengths. "These is particularly interesting," observed, gesturing to one of the displays showing current council membership. They've become the leading suppliers of quantum processing technology. Under hegemony rule, we force them to produce weapon systems. People are generally more productive when they're working on projects they care about, Doctor noted as she joined the conversation. They have always been brilliant engineers. We just gave them the freedom to engineer solutions instead of destruction. The irony wasn't lost on any of them. The hegemony alliance, which had prided itself on efficiency and order, had actually been profoundly wasteful. By forcing conquered species into military production roles regardless of their natural abilities, the alliance had squandered countless opportunities for innovation and growth. Admiral's integration has been particularly successful, continued. His experience with both hegemony and council systems has made him an invaluable liaison officer. Indeed, the former admiral had become one of the council's most effective diplomats, helping former hegemony worlds transition to cooperative governance. His intimate knowledge of alliance military doctrine had also proven crucial in developing new defense strategies that relied on coordination rather than overwhelming force. Admiral said carefully, I must ask you something that has been troubling me for months. Go ahead. That day in the system, when you surrounded my fleet with 6,000 ships, was that really necessary? Could you have achieved the same result with fewer forces? Smiled, and for the first time since their confrontation, it was genuinely amused rather than grimly professional. Supreme Commander, we could have achieved the same result with about 50 ships. The 6,000 vessel deployment was educational. Educational. We wanted to make absolutely certain that every species in the galaxy understood the new balance of power, Doctor explained. Word of that confrontation has reached civilizations in the outer spiral, the colonies, even the distant edge worlds. Everyone now knows that aggressive expansion is no longer a viable strategy. Felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. You were sending a message to species you hadn't even encountered yet. We were establishing the ground rules for galactic civilization, confirmed. Supreme Commander, humanity's policy is very simple. Species that choose cooperation will find us to be generous allies. Species that choose conquest will find us to be implacable enemies. The effectiveness of this strategy was already evident. Three major military powers in distant sectors had sent diplomatic missions to Sanctuary Prime, requesting membership in the Council before any conflicts could develop. The galaxy was adapting to a new reality where cooperation was not just morally superior to conquest, but strategically necessary for survival. The economic data is even more impressive than the diplomatic achievements, noted Commander Park, who had been promoted to Director of Strategic Planning. Trade volume between Council worlds has increased by 800%. Technological development rates are up 400%. Quality of life indices show improvement across every measured category. Because species are no longer wasting resources on military expansion and population subjugation, observed. The resources we spent maintaining control over conquered worlds could have been used for infrastructure development and scientific research. Exactly, Doctor agreed. The hegemony model required enormous military expenditures to suppress rebellion and resistance. The Council model channels those same resources into projects that benefit everyone. Gestured toward another display showing current construction projects throughout Council space. Supreme Commander, look at what your own people have accomplished in the past 6 months. The former hegemony territories were alive with activity that would have been impossible under the old system. They were building quantum communication networks that would connect every inhabited world in the galaxy. They were developing new agricultural techniques that could feed populations 3 times more efficiently. They were creating biomedical advances that were extending and improving health across multiple species. My people were always capable of these achievements, said quietly. The hegemony system simply never allowed them to reach their potential. Which brings us to the question of your own future, Admiral Harrison said as she joined the group. Supreme Commander, the Council has been discussing your unique position in our new government. Tensed, am I to be tried for war crimes? That depends on your definition of trial, Harrison replied. The Council has established a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to address the crimes committed during the hegemony period. You would be required to provide complete testimony about Alliance policies and actions. And then you'd be assigned to the Department of Transitional Justice, explained. Your knowledge of hegemony systems and personnel would be invaluable in helping former Alliance worlds establish fair and effective governments. The offer surprised. Instead of punishment, humanity was offering him a chance to help repair the damage his alliance had caused. Why? Why would you trust someone who spent decades enforcing hegemony rule? Because someone who understands how systems of oppression work is uniquely qualified to help design systems of freedom, Doctor answered. Supreme Commander, we're not interested in revenge. We're interested in ensuring this kind of tragedy never happens again. Admiral's voice joined the conversation through the communication system. I can speak from experience. Working to build something better than what we destroyed is far more satisfying than endless conquest ever was. The transformation had indeed been remarkable. Who had once commanded hegemony fleets in brutal suppression campaigns, now spent his time helping former enemy worlds develop their own defense capabilities. Instead of inspiring fear, he was earning respect through constructive action. There is one condition, added seriously. Full participation in the Council requires absolute transparency about past actions. There can be no hidden agendas, no secret loyalties, no reserved authority structures. Council membership means complete commitment to cooperative governance. Considered this carefully. Accepting would mean abandoning everything the hegemony alliance had represented. It would mean admitting that his entire military career had been based on fundamentally wrong principles. But it would also mean becoming part of something unprecedented in galactic history, a civilization that actually worked. Admiral, he said finally, the Hegemony Alliance formally requests dissolution and integration into the Galactic Cooperation Council. The words seemed to echo in the chamber, marking the end of the largest military empire in known galactic history, and the beginning of an era where strength was measured by cooperation rather than conquest. Request approved, replied formally. Then more personally, she added, welcome to the future, Supreme Commander. I think you're going to find it much more interesting than the past. As if to underscore her point, alerts began chiming throughout the station. A new contact had appeared on the edge of sensor range. a massive fleet approaching from the unexplored regions beyond the galactic rim. First contact with an entirely unknown civilization. Admiral, called the station's communication officer. The approaching fleet is requesting permission to speak with representatives of the legendary human council that defeated the hegemony without destroying them. Smiled as she headed toward the command center. Well, Supreme Commander, it looks like the galaxy is about to get even more interesting. Are you ready to help us show another civilization what cooperation can accomplish? Followed her, realizing that what he had thought was the end of his career was actually just the beginning of something far greater. The battle might have been over, but humanity's real work, building a galaxy worth living in, was just getting warmed up. Outside the station's windows, ships from dozens of species worked together in perfect coordination, their crews united by a common understanding. When civilizations chose cooperation over conquest, everyone won. The age of galactic empires was over. The age of galactic community had begun in the end of a war. This was the end of an entire era of galactic history and the beginning of something unprecedented, a galaxy where cooperation was stronger than conquest. The Supreme Commander was about to learn that when humans said they were just getting warmed up, they meant the real demonstration of power was about to begin. It's military might. Would you like to see what happens when humans decide a battle is just getting started? Mattered. The Admiral was about to learn that when humans said the battle was just getting warmed up, they meant every word.